This podcast is about storytelling. I am your host, Dr. Mijiza Sanchez-Guzman, Associate Dean of the Office of Medical Student Affairs and the founder of the First Generation Mentorship Program at Stanford Medicine, and I am proud to be first generation. Many of us are the first in our families to accomplish living the dream. Being the first means different things to different people. Join me now on a journey as we share our stories about how we've navigated being first generation in academic medicine. I will have the honor and pleasure of interviewing first generation clinicians, leaders, mentors, students, faculty, and researchers as they share their lived experiences of being the first. I hope these stories will inspire the next generation of leaders in health sciences. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Al'ai Alvarez. He is a clinical associate professor in Stanford's Emergency Medicine Department. He's the director of well-being at Stanford Emergency Medicine. He co-leads the Human Potential Team. He's the fellowship director of Physician Wellness Fellowship. He's also the chair of Physician Wellness Forum, Stanford WellMD, and WellPhD. He's the director of Physician Resource Network, support programs, Stanford WellMD, Stanford PhD, which is Stanford's peer-to-peer support for faculty and trainees. His work focuses on humanizing physician roles as individuals and teams by harnessing the individual human potential in the context of high-performance teams. His long-term interest is to optimize the interconnectedness between medical education, process improvement, recruitment, diversity, and well-being, inclusion through human-centered design. I am so delighted to introduce you to Dr. Al'ai Alvarez. Welcome, Al'ai.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. And if it's okay with you, we can be first name basis for this conversation, especially with all the titles that you read. It's overwhelming. And so thank you.
My pleasure. Let's get started. Can you share a bit about your background and what led you to the field of academic medicine?
Yeah. So I immigrated from the Philippines when I was 13. And in terms of pursuing medicine, it started off as a game with my brother and my cousin playing this game of war, which, as a kid, you want to be either the good guy or the bad guy. And somehow I always ended up not having either of those spots. And so earlier on, I thought maybe I can be integral in both because I can just take care of whoever gets injured. And somehow that kind of stuck with my roles. My grandfather, who helped raise us, kind of reached whatever he called for me. He would ask me, "Hey, I need a doctor in the house." And mind you, there's no doctors in our family. And so that kind of set the stage for me to really pursue it. Clearly, it was a childhood initial interaction, and then when I moved here, I started observing my mom, who's a nurse. I got to work in the hospital. I got to work in the emergency department, and that's when really it solidified for me that I think my life's work is really meant to work with those who are in need, especially emergency needs.
Tell me a story. When did you first become aware of your first gen identity?
Yeah, I think thank you for asking me that. When we immigrated here, what I didn't realize is that my mom, who raised us as a single mom, was taking on a lot to make sure that the basic needs are taken care of, including having to work extra shifts, different roles and different jobs, just so we can go to school, get fed, and all of that. When I applied to college, and that was like shortly after moving here, we didn't know anything about applying to college here. I didn't know anything about the SATs. I remember my guidance counselor just told me, just pass the TOEFL test of English proficiency or something. And if you pass that, you'll be fine to go to BOCES, I think was what she was trying to get me to do. But clearly, again, that quick background story that I gave you, that my grandfather has been calling me a doctor, and so I wanted to at least see what that would look like. So I applied for college. It was clear that the SAT was as an important currency. And navigating college and not knowing anybody in my family who's gone through college here was not easy. That meant that I kind of internalized a lot of these pressures and thinking that maybe if I work harder, I'll get into medical school. And that is true. But I think without the right guidance, and so you asked me like what does it feel like, or how does it feel like to be a first generation physician? For me, it's like not knowing that I didn't have to finish 3 degrees in 4 years to become a doctor. I did not need to work 3 different jobs, just like my mom, in order to pay for college. That there's other many ways of doing that, probably a lot easier ways. And I'm not regretting any of this, but in my role now, I get to share this with folks to let them know that, you can work a lot smarter and enjoy what you're doing versus really pushing yourself so hard. And I don't have any problems with that. But I think when it's misaligned, especially with, for me, I could have studied more on my MCAT because that is a currency, believe it or not, still, that if your MCAT is low, there are programs in this country that will just not look at your application, despite having 3 degrees, despite being presidents and leaders in all of these other organizations that I did to make sure that I can prove to people that I'm a good leader, that I can work really hard and all of that stuff. It boiled down to some certain currencies. And then without knowing that, having not known a lot of people who have gone through this and feel confident and comfortable enough to reach out and ask those like tough questions, then it's like kind of making your own map as you're going along. And so now I work really hard to kind of share, including this opportunity to kind of share this story so that people hopefully can understand that there's a common humanity here. So for those of us who's pursuing medicine, whether you have parents who are doctors already, or maybe this is the first time you're just navigating this possibility, that whenever we encounter some adversities, and there's a lot of that in medicine, we were constantly reminded, are you sure you want to be a doctor? And they give you more tests. And then you pass that test. They ask you, are you sure you really want to be a doctor? Right? And what I've learned now is that I can actually pause and step back and ask people, hey, do I really need to do this? Are there easier ways of doing that? Not to look for cutting corners, but actually just, again, being able to prioritize our efforts more efficiently so that we're working smarter and less about just doing the work for the sake of doing the work. And in the end, it doesn't get rewarded the way that we expect things to happen.
Yeah, thank you. What are some of the barriers or challenges you faced as you pursued your career or education in medicine?
Oof, a lot. So for me, the biggest barrier, I would say, is not having a high grades in those standardized tests. I mean, I graduated with honors. I graduated with 3 degrees in undergrad, right? With different leadership roles. The university actually gave me a special award just because they call it a disparate award for my major, because I had a School of Arts degree, Bachelor's of Arts in English, and also a Bachelor's of Science in biology, and also I had a degree under the School of Medicine for biophysics. And so like it was just three different things that I was able to accomplish. So, but despite all of that, and that's not the challenging part. That was the cool part for me, because I was pursuing something that I was really truly interested and really getting excited about. The challenge was that when it came to applying for medical school, for instance, it didn't matter. All of those things that I got to do, it really boiled down to some screening aspects of applications in many programs out there. That if you don't have a certain level of score, they won't even review your application. And so again, for me, that meant that I got 2 interviews in medical school. I got waitlisted in one. I got rejected to all the other programs that I applied to. And in terms of and that is not so. I guess that is a big challenge. But the bigger challenge, I think, is how do you then navigate that? Do you then go back and tell yourself and your folks that like, hey, I'm not going to be a doctor? And so for me, I think the real challenge is being kind to myself in that moment and say, hey, you've done a lot of work here. What do you need to do next? What's the next best thing that I need to do? And I'm getting goosebumps because then I'm reminded of my guidance counselor who sat with me and listened to like the struggles that I was explaining, right? Like this is not like a struggle of like I failed a bunch of tests. This is like a struggle of I was not good enough at that moment to take this one standardized test, and somehow that defined who I was gonna be for the programs that were looking at my application, and being reminded you've actually done a whole lot. And so there are these mentors along the way that I'm so grateful for, and I still reach out to them. I still keep in contact with them to remind them that the simple things that they do, it may be a Monday for them, but it meant a great deal for me to meet somebody, to meet people along the way that truly believe that I can be the doctor that I am now, and I get to do that. And that's why it's actually super cool that we're having this conversation.
You just gave me the chills.
Yeah, right. But because it's true. So you asked me earlier, like, there's all these questions. You get to see me as me, and how cool is it that I get to show up as me now, being that same person that graduated with 3 degrees, that did not get into medical school immediately because of some random number that people are basing their way of evaluating me, to the person me now who gets to really show up and enjoy what I get to do, enjoy the people that I get to work with, and also hopefully inspire those who may find themselves right now like, huh, I didn't do so well in this one test. Nobody asks me about my MCAT score. In fact, the MCAT score now is very different from the MCAT scores then.
Yeah, it
It
is.
doesn't even matter, right?
Yeah.
What mattered was the same drive that I had when I was applying for medical school to where I am now. I get to share
Yeah.
to people my personal statement today. To this day, it's still the same. It rings true. The first paragraph. I get to contribute a verse in the work that I get to do.
Awesome. What do you wish you knew before entering the world of academic medicine as a first generation
Oh,
professional?
yeah. That actually we're all struggling in this space. That there's a lot of experts that we work with. So here at Stanford, right, there's that idea of the duck syndrome of everybody looks like they're accomplishing a lot. Everybody looks like they're floating serenely in a pond. But the reality is we're all struggling under the water. That's just part of the human condition. And so the more we get to talk about that, the more that we can normalize that. I wish I had known that people were also struggling, because then I didn't need to puff up when I was also feeling insecure about what I knew, right? Or
Yeah.
I need to cower because I was worried that maybe they'll think that I'm not good enough and opportunities will not open up for me. I get to be in a position now where I get to really say yes to things that I love doing, especially being here. And also getting to say no to many things that people ask me, hey, do you want to be part of this? No, it doesn't align with my values. It doesn't align with my interests. And so being able to do that, I think requires a lot of inner work of truly being kind to myself, because I have been journeying this as this first in my family to be a doctor, right? And what I've
Hmm.
learned is that when people are, and this is a work in progress for me. I'm not perfect. I still make a lot of mistakes. But what I can at least tell you is that whenever those things happen, whenever I don't get what I wish I wanted to get, I can go back to myself and take care of myself the way that I truly need, versus ignoring my needs to kind of prove to other people that I'm just good, if not better than other candidates they're looking for. If I didn't get something now, I'm like, all right, well, great. That means I have more opportunity to do something else. And that's a very different way of looking at things. And also, I think that um, there's a role there for perseverance, and also a role for mentorship. I can continue working really hard, getting 5 more jobs, getting 5 more degrees. It wouldn't have mattered, right, to get into medical school. But talking to people, and that requires, again, a lot of self-compassion. being able to acknowledge that I don't have to have it all, but I am good enough. And that is enough for me to then talk to people and not have to worry that they're going to judge me. Because what I found, especially in academia, is that, especially here at Stanford, people are so nice. People actually are willing to sit down and teach me the basic things because I am much more comfortable saying, I don't know, I have no idea about this. And the more I say I have no idea, and so long as I come in with curiosity, right? And again, that
Yeah.
grace that I can learn this, that growth mindset, and that requires again a lot of self-compassion, opportunities just open up.
Yeah, for sure. What advice would you give to someone interested in pursuing a career in academic medicine?
Yeah, that's don't discount it. I came into this with a lot of imposterism. Again, because of my training, I went to a county hospital. I don't have the classic like Stanford pedigree of being in Ivy League schools, and so when I was looking for jobs, I specifically did not apply to Stanford because Stanford rejected me for medical school. Stanford rejected me for residency program, and I'm very open about that. Because you know what? I get to review applications now in the medical school. I get to review applications now and interview folks in the residency, including for faculty positions. And you know why? Because again, the system thinks that we need to hire people based on X, Y, Z. And so when I became an assistant program director, I asked my team, I said, how many more of me did we reject because of because of the step one score?
Mm-hmm.
And so then I am proud to say, right? And it didn't take immediately. And that's the thing. There's a lot of these false fails. People will give you resistance, and for good reasons, because we don't want to just change the rules and change things just because of some passionate guy that like tells you like, hey, we need to do this, right? We got to really explore this and study this. And so what I've done as an APD was really work on this effort on inclusion. And inclusion being like, if we're trying to increase representation, we have to truly, not just numbers, ask like, what will it take for us to train the best of the best? And so some of my work, you've heard my bio being read, like I love high performance teams. I get to work with folks who are really at the peak of their performance. I get to sit alongside NASA astronauts. Like I got to do that a few months ago. I get to sit down with like special operations forces in some of the meetings that I attend. And in all of these, I think what's helpful is that each of us actually has the capacity to change our environment. And so when I asked like how many more of me um, did we reject, it took 4 years. But now I'm proud to say that Stanford Emergency Medicine is one of the first in the country to not only look at step one and step two as pass fail, but truly we do this holistic review. And also because of the work that we did, I got to co-lead this task force for all of GME, the graduate medical education, to create holistic review for all of GME. So again, so it's no longer just like you don't get interviewed at Stanford because you didn't make a certain step one score. Now we actually read your application because there's many more to you than that one test scores.
Yeah, absolutely. So glad you're here. How has being first generation shaped how you've approached your training or professional career?
Ooh, I like the phrasing of that. It's the idea that failure still happen. I have if I can show you my failure resume, it's very impressive. I'm so proud of it. But because again, as a first generation physician, I get to reflect back, like if I don't get something, let's say I applied for this thing, this grant or whatnot, and I don't get it, right? I just have to remind myself that like people actually just wished for me to just get into a BOCES program. And so to be a clinical associate professor with all the titles that I gave you today, like that you heard today, that's a big win for me. The distance that I've traveled to get to where I am now is significant. And so that reminder of, I'm going to quote Lavia Ajayi on this. Um, I'm not the best. I don't have to be. I am enough. And so whenever I don't get things that I want, it doesn't mean that I'm not good enough. It just means that it's not the right thing for me for whatever reason. I'm exactly where I need to be. I got to
At
do.
that time.
Oh, yeah, at that time. So I got to do my sabbatical in Dharamshala. Again, like who would have thought like this me, the non-academic me before, who now has embraced academia, gets to do a sabbatical in Dharamshala, gets to meet the Dalai Lama, get to work on like mindfulness and medicine, right? And so so you asked me earlier, by the way, like what would I tell people about pursuing life in academic medicine? Don't discount it, because again, I was not, if you look at my resume, I didn't do research before this. In fact, like my first publication was, I think, like 6 years ago, if that. And and part of that is because I thought, like, I had this idea that in order to publish, you have to do a randomized controlled study. I get published now and actually like giving so for instance, like standardized tests. We have shown, I'm part of a study that shows that in emergency medicine, what we use is we have a standardized letter evaluation. We standardize this so that we minimize bias. And what we've shown in that, I'm getting goosebumps again, right? Because this is the first of its kind research that shows that if you are a person of color, you're more likely to be graded differently compared to any other applicants in emergency medicine. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, part of being a medical educator is to highlight some of this like structural biases that exist. That is one of the cool things about like being in academic medicine, because now I get to talk to other programs in the country and tell them like, hey, we rely so much on standardized tests. Did you know that's actually that those standardized tests are biased against certain groups in our population? And also, if you don't have the money to pay for those test taking skills, that you're already disadvantaged, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also this, I hope this is a validation for those folks who's like just doing the best they can, paying for those whatever test taking program to get better. Yeah, you should do that because it is a currency. Like I'm not taking that, I'm not saying that it's gone, but knowing that you're able to refocus your energy a little bit more.
Can we partner on a publication together?
Oh, 100% easy. Yeah. This is exactly how academic medicine is like. You share your passion, somebody else is passionate about it, and they're like, hey, can we write something together about this? And that's
Yeah,
it. There's
let's
not a
do
lot
it.
of these like application things anymore. Like doctor, like Mijiza didn't ask me like, hey, what was your MCAT score before I like write a paper with you? But
I
we
don't
put
care
that,
what your
like,
answer
it's
is.
really weird, right? Like we have this notion that like in order to publish, you got to do this. Like now, like my publication has been like focusing on like how can we truly improve the work environment? How can we increase a sense of belonging in the workplace so that we can minimize burnout in medicine? So that we can not just minimize burnout, that's one conversation. I'm actually more on this side, which is how can we achieve professional fulfillment? How can we truly show up, love our job, and really be excited about that and get rewarded for it?
Yeah, yeah. Do you believe your first generation status influenced your career choices and trajectory? And if so, what ways?
Yeah, because whenever I fail, again, I just like, all right, well then I failed. It doesn't mean that like I need to quit. It's not easy, right? People size you up based on where you're coming from, what training, the pedigree, and all of that stuff. But in the end, what I've learned is that I'm more open to the struggle, the obstacle, and not just open to it, but recognizing that here's another struggle that I'm gonna need to surmount, and here's what I need to in order for me, me the person, me the human being, to be taken care of. And also maybe it's in that reflection that I realize, why am I pushing myself so much to do this? So I'll tell you an example. I I when I was applying, so I recently being now 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago now, I forgot, got promoted to associate professor, professor, clinical associate professor.
Congratulations.
Thank you, right? But in academia, you're like, that's just part of life. You just move up. And so so I asked when I was like getting to the process, I asked like, hey, what do I need to do to get published? They're like, oh, I need to present more. And so I presented a ton. And so they're like, oh, you need to publish more. And so like the rules, like I didn't understand the rules because again, nobody's telling me this. Um, But now that I did all of that, I got promoted, and a good friend of mine asked me, "It's like, how are you celebrating?" It's like, oh, right, like that is a thing, right? Like we actually should celebrate because nobody celebrates anymore. You don't graduate anymore. There's no like diploma. You don't get like a diploma of clinical associate professor. You just get a title in your email. Um, and so then, of course, like now I take vacations. And you've seen my away messages. It's gonna happen again starting Friday. I'm going to Croatia. I spent a lot
Nice.
of time writing down like what I'm gonna be doing and celebrating life and all of that. Because you know what? At the end of the day, I need to take care of myself. So twice a year, despite all of those titles that I have, I'm very clear whenever I take on new roles, take on new responsibilities. I tell people I go on vacation twice a year, at least 2 weeks at a time, and I will be disconnected. And so if people are willing to work with me knowing that, then that's a win. That's a win for them because they get to work with me. And that's a win for me because then I don't need to compromise myself in order to just fit in anymore. So yeah,
Yes.
like how does me being a first generation physician like mean in that length in that practice? I get to redefine what I think should be important for me because I need that to be authentic
Yes.
versus me trying to fit in all the time because the rules change. The MCAT scoring system changed. That is beyond my control. What I can control is every year, every day, every hour, I need to figure out a way to make sure that I'm taken care of as well. Not being selfish, but actually just truly what we are expected to do, be compassionate to ourselves.
Yeah. Self-care is not selfish.
Yeah.
How do you believe we can make the field of academic medicine more inclusive and accessible to first generation professionals?
Yeah, so you heard me earlier talk about like no, we address the structural things like step one scores and whatnot that prevents it to increase representation. That's just like one of the earlier steps to open up the doors, right? The real work truly is on inclusion and belonging. And what does that mean? So for me, so anybody in our department who gets interviewed for a job and they're ready to offer them like the position, I get to talk to them. And I tell them all the struggles and the pains and all the fun things that we do here at Stanford because I want people to know what they're getting themselves into. And if they can truly accept that, like, hey, this place, even though it's the land of milk and honey, there's a lot of like inefficiencies, there's a lot of pressures to work here. If you can accept that, and if you can embrace, like, yeah, yes, and I
Hmm.
can, um, I can deal with all of these like logistics nightmare and still get to do my job, right? That I can and still, then those are people that really thrive here. The ones who we highly recruit because they're wonderful human beings and they are talented, and we tell them all the good things about Stanford and not tell them the not so great things. When they get here, they get in this like shock mode that like nobody told me this. I went through that. I wanted to quit Stanford at the very beginning because I felt like I couldn't fit in. And then it took like several people, like the Patty DeVries, that like the Dr. Marian Mikowski, who like sat down with me and reminded me that you're just as good as everybody else and that you are talented and there's a reason why you're here. We're exactly where we need to be, right? And so what do I tell folks? How can we create a better, a more inclusive environment? We normalize this. We normalize talking about things that we're ashamed of. We normalize,
Hmm.
like I talk a lot about my failures and my residents, the things that are like the bad outcomes, the outcomes that I did not wish happened, but happened. And the more we can create like moments like that, the more people can truly feel like they belong. Again, it's that self-determination theory, autonomy, belonging, competence. We want people to feel a sense of agency and autonomy here at Stanford. We're very good at that, actually, at that part. The belonging piece is harder though, because then if we don't truly allow people to understand what they're driven by, their goals, their core values, if we don't help them see that their core values actually can align with the institutional values and mission and goals, then I can almost guarantee that give it a couple of years and dealing with inefficiencies, because nowhere else in the world is so efficient that you're not going to deal with it, right? But just acknowledging that they exist and being comfortable with that, that's where the magic happens. That's where innovation happens. That's when you get to question the system like, How many more of me did we accept? Did we not accept because of a test taking score, right? That's how
Yeah.
you change the system. But unless you're comfortable enough to even ask that question, I never would have felt like I belonged. I never would have felt like I was included in the conversation. I was just then somebody who was hired to interview people, like search for the best of the best, and hopefully they get better here. And that's not how we do inclusion. Inclusion means that like when you're at your lowest lows and your highest highs, you're gonna be able to feel comfortable to sing and celebrate and also to cry. And
Mm.
the crying part is a real thing here. And
Mm-hmm.
everywhere else we go will be a real thing. It's just that for me, actually, the people that I get to work with, they know that they can call me and we can talk, we can cry together about that. Because that, for me, from a human potential perspective, that's how we optimize the individual and the teams.
Absolutely. You mentioned two, but can you share any mentors or relationships that have been particularly influential in your career?
I love that. I have a lot of those. Mentor is a very big word. It's a very serious responsibility. I take this on now, right? Like I'm a mentor to many folks. And in fact, I say no now to mentor several people because I'm not, I know I see the look in your face. It's just actually being honest, right? What they need is not a mentor at that moment, perhaps. Maybe they just need a coach or an advisor. I'm very clear. Like, if you want a mentor, I will be there with you, but I am going to require a lot. Like, we're going to meet regularly. We're going to have like a clear goal. We're going to do this, like, and we're going to trial it for a year. Like, that's how I do true mentorship. The ones that I get assigned to me, a lot of those like do not usually like flourish because you have to have like that match, like matching the personality or the energy. And so, but for the most part, what I've learned though is that they don't need a true mentor, right? They probably have mentors somewhere, or at least I tell them you need to find a mentor somewhere else. But what I will be there for them is I can advise them, I can coach them, I can give them like guidance. That I'm good at. Like that, I don't say no to. I'm usually very good with that. So long as you can fit in my calendar, right? Um,
Yeah.
but for the mentor, now I'm very selective who I mentor because I really want to make sure that I'm doing my job. Because the worst feeling I think as a mentor is that you have a lot of these mentees in your roster, and then I have no idea what they're doing now. I don't know like what they need. And then so then I've failed in my role as a mentor. And I hate that feeling. And so in order for me to be good, I'm at my best if if I have clarity. And some of them actually like I don't need you to be my mentor that like checks in with me every month because that's overwhelming. Some of them are like that, and that's good. But at least I need to know that from them, and I need to be able to allocate enough time and energy for each of them so that they can be successful. So I do a lot of the mentorship part. I do a lot of peer mentoring also, like colleagues of mine that I consider as mentors. But what I have a bigger slate is called a board of advisors. I have a ton of advisors. I reach out to you when it comes to like certain like topics here in the university and on campus. I reach out to so many people, and I truly consider them as part of my board of advisors because that makes it less pressure for them to really take care of me all the time. That I don't need that. I can take care of myself also, right? But what I do know is that especially as I'm navigating a lot of these like spaces now that like does not exist, like that I'm developing, I need to be able to tap into the expertise of like the Mijizas. Hey, how do you do this in the School of Medicine? How do I? So I ask somebody else like in another university, how do you do this at your place? And that I think is an innovator's mindset. And yes, mentors are important. I have very fond memories of my mentorship roles, and also I have really good mentors that I still keep in touch with. But they're a lot narrower than the number of board of directors that I have.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for being a mentor, by the way, in our mentorship program.
Sure, yeah,
And thank you for being on my advisory board.
yeah. Thank you.
Tell me, how do you celebrate being first gen?
A lot of these wins, I get to so celebration. So there's like a mini celebration and there's like the grand celebration. So for me, the grand celebration is again, I treat myself every 6 months to a nice vacation. But celebrating wins every day is like reminding myself that I get to do what I love doing because of the journey that I've had. And nobody can ever take that away from me, which means also I have to protect that, right? There's going to be a lot of people, especially when you start doing wonderful things. Hey, can you do this? Can you do that? Part of celebrating the not just the first gen, but just me celebrating me is to be able to say no. like embracing the no's. I say a lot of no's now to people, not because I don't care about them. It's just that I'm not the right person for whatever they're looking for. And so I'm a lot more discerning. And that truly is a true celebration of being a first generation in medicine, right? Because the first generation me before would be saying yes to everything because I'm just trying to please everybody, to prove to everybody that, like, take me, take me. The true celebration of me now is to get to where I am and to actually be able to say no to things, even some things that, like, oh man, that is such a great opportunity. It's just not the right thing for me now, right? Maybe in 6 months. And so there's also ways to say no to that. But again, being able to say no is a much more powerful celebration than like the vacation. Like I will go on vacation whether I'm celebrated or not. Like that is like just celebrating me. But I think a true celebration of being the first is to recognize that you are so much more worthy of being there to just say yes to everything.
Amen. I need to learn that. Is there anything else you would like to share with our viewers?
I think that as this is done here at Stanford, this work was done here at Stanford. Physicians who are kinder to themselves, self-valuation, embracing your imperfections and having that growth mindset, that self-compassion. Physicians with the highest self-valuation or self-compassion are more likely to have the lowest burnout and the highest professional fulfillment. They just sleep better because they prioritize their sleep better. Unfortunately, in medicine, physicians also tend to have the lowest self-compassion compared to the general public. And so physicians with the lowest self-compassion or self-valuation are more likely to be burnt out. And so what I'm trying to say here is that there's a study even in the medical school literature that on day one of medical school, those folks have such positive outlook in life. They are twice less likely to be burnt out compared to the rest of the population in the US, age adjusted. And they're less likely to have depression, anxiety, and more likely to have this, again, this sense of optimism. And then 4 years later, just 4 years of medical school, something happens in medical school. And we need to work on this. Just 4 years of medical school, those folks are twice more likely to feel burnout compared to the general population, age adjusted, twice more likely to feel anxiety, depression, and twice less likely to have that positive outlook in life. And I truly believe that a good reason for that is that we select for folks who can do better with their tests, who like perform better. But if it's just purely on performance without acknowledging our humanity in it, and including being kind to ourselves, including that self-valuation, accepting our imperfections and that growth mindset, then of course we will feel burnt out because the system then feels like it's not aligned with us. But it can be done. Really, there's a lot. It takes work to practice self-compassion. But when you do it, again, imagine being in a situation where you get rewarded for the things that you love doing. For me, that is like alignment. For me, that is a sense of belonging. And for me, that is how it feels like to be kinder to yourself, to accept who you are, and to be able to show up as you are.
Thank you. Can we do some rapid fire questions?
Oh, I love it. Rapid fire questions.
Okay, what are you currently reading?
Ooh, I run a book club in our department,
Of
and
course you do.
I do a lot. I really so what that 3 degrees taught me in undergrad was that I can really prioritize different pressures in my life. But actually, I do book clubs because it gives me, number one, a better informed plan on whatever we tackle in the human potential team. So we read Oliver Sacks's The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. It's a wonderful book. It's actually a very sciencey neurology thing. And so when I was sending that to folks, this is a lot more serious than the normal books that we read, but that's okay. Because then I shared with them, can we read this in the lens of as folks in the department who are trying to address burnouts and professional fulfillment, how do we listen to folks? So actually it's a great book on like showing curiosity when you're talking to patients. It's a great book to learning how to be curious and listening, right? Without gaslighting those patients who have this like bizarre presentations that we think like, oh, is that really real? So this is great. I have a couple here that I'll share with you. Here's another one, The Book of Joy, by Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama. It's a great book about just like being kind to the world and kind to yourself. And these are just two wonderful human beings. And the thing that caught my eye right now is also Brene Brown's book.
Oh,
I thought it was just me, making the journey from what will people think to I am enough. So there are three books that I can share with you. Could I add one more? This is near and dear to my heart. These are two of my good friends. They just published a book. I think Dr. Adair Landry is a first generation physician also. She's a
ooh.
wonderful human being. It's called Micro Skills, Small Actions, Big Impact. Buy this book on a Friday, be better at your job on Monday. This is going to be one of our books this year in our book club. And I just love the content and the work that they do.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I love Brene Brown. I've read everything she's written.
Yeah, yeah.
What's the last good movie you watched?
The last good movie I watched. I recently, I have to think about this. I really truly the one that I by the way I'm like Nemo, well Dory in Nemo, like I forget, I really do. This is a great gift for me because I don't remember movies as well, and so then I can watch it again and feel like, oh my gosh, like this is so I get immersed again. And so I've been watching like Ted Lasso a lot lately because I've been doing a lot of clinical shifts and I just need that like good coaching personality, but that's not a movie. So to answer your question, I think Hulu or Max just had Twister back on their circulation again.
Oh,
The movie about tornadoes. I
yeah.
in My partner was in Arkansas this summer, and so I got to visit Arkansas, and because of tornadoes there, and so I was reminded. So Twister was a great show to just remind me of what people deal with, and also being there, watching like the real damage that a tornado can do, and also like the innovation. Like these folks like really develop something really cool. So I love the drama of it, love some humor in it, and in the end, I think it's the human interactions that really drew me to that movie.
What do you prefer, coffee or tea?
I'm a tea person. This
Ooh.
me showing up at work. I don't. I try to avoid caffeine because I'm very hyper person already. My energy is very high, so I do. That's why I meditate a lot. That's why I was in Dharamshala to learn about meditation, to learn how to like really like calm myself down a little bit when I get excited, because I get excited about many things. So I drink chamomile tea. So I have chamomile tea here in preparation for usually things that make me like nervous. I was nervous about this interview only because again, I respect you a lot, and I know that like for me showing up as myself, I'm comfortable with that. And also at the same time, like I want to make sure that when I show up as myself, it's something that people can also relate to and practical, as opposed to the worst thing that we can do, I think, especially in this conversation, is me being highlighted as like, here's the many accomplishments that I've done. And then it makes it looks like makes it look like that in order to be happy, you have to be here. What I'm showing, and hopefully I'm also modeling, is that I can be happy just watching Twister and feeling like I'm taking care of myself. And that's the message that I want to convey here.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
I get to do that now. I mean, I live in San Francisco. I'm a short flight away, or a short drive to the airport to fly anywhere and everywhere. Um, Truly, Stanford is for me the land of milk. I have gotten so much opportunities because that is Stanford, right? We have the Center for Compassion, Altruism Research and Education. I was onboarding the fellows this morning, and I told them, it's like, do not underestimate the fact that you are at Stanford. So if you're just focused on your fellowship and graduate in 2 years, you're going to fail yourself because you've missed out on all the wonderful opportunities here. So ask for, hey, can I do this? Like explore things that you're interested in, because what you'll realize is by the time you graduate, if you are just exploring one or two things that's truly aligned with your values, you're going to be great. You're going to be the next, you're going to be my next boss. And truly some of like my boss, my medical director was my resident. He was our resident, right? And so for me, these relationships that I foster, like I look to people as if like they're gonna be my next boss. And so yeah, I live in San Francisco. I love it. If I have to pick a country outside of the US to live, I would say Spain. I love Spain a lot. I love the food. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I love their outlook in life as well. They celebrate life very well. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
That's awesome. What podcast are you listening to, if any?
not a whole lot on podcasts, only because again, I didn't share this. I'm a very slow reader. Because I go back and forth, and so I listen a lot to books. So I was listening to Oliver Sacks this past week. My next book, I don't know where my phone is, but um, usually I like the books that I tend to listen to are like the ones that I shared with you.
Are you a morning person or a night owl? I think I already know the answer to this question.
I'm a nocturnist. I work overnights, and so this is the rare moments where you get to see me during the daytime. And yeah, I work nights.
What song makes you happy every time you hear it?
Ooh, there, happy. I'm again. It's like that Nemo. I don't know the names, but I think it's called the Happy Song. Like the
Is
um.
it by Pharrell?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. And my last question is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
This is bringing up a lot of memories for me, and partly because it was from somebody that I did not really like the most because they were not the kindest. But I'll share with you the advice because it's grown on me, and it's actually you've probably heard this also before. But looking back in the years that I've been here at Stanford, looking back in the work that I've done, in the pivots that I've done in my career, the advice was this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. Um,
Mm,
and again, that person who told me that was telling me something else different, but in application to um, real life scenarios of choosing to do things versus choosing not to do things. That reminder of this is not a sprint but a marathon, and focusing on sustainability, focusing on growth, focusing on this building relationships and making sure that not just building but actually like honoring those relationships. That really that's the first thing that comes to my mind right now. And also I think I will just add that just because it came from somebody that I did not like, it doesn't mean that I can't learn from that. Um,
mhm.
and I'm getting goosebumps because that's the truth of energy that I didn't think of that. But like when you asked me that question, that's the first thing that came to mind. And it's a good reminder that like, again, um, we get to choose. I could choose not to listen to that advice because I didn't like the guy, or I can choose to take the nugget of truth that they were sharing with me and then make something wonderful out of that.
LA, thank you so much. This
Yeah.
was such an honor and pleasure.
Oh, same for me. Really, what you're doing is really, really important. I wish resources like this were available when I was in my path to becoming a doctor. I think I hope that you know that by doing uh, interviews like this, you are not only giving me, like people like me, the opportunity to remember the journey that we've taken, and also remind folks who are still in the journey or about to go into the journey that number one, it can be done. It's not easy work. We are choosing a hard path, and that you don't have to go through it alone, and that you're don't have to be the best. You don't, and you are enough.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.